I love watching sports. Anybody else love watching sports? We just finished March Madness, the NCAA basketball tournament, both men's and women's division. March Madness is fun, even if you don't like basketball, because it's fun just to watch the last 3 to 4 minutes of every game. How fun was it to watch the Baylor men's team win the national championship this year? Right? See, the tournament is known for its upsets when an unknown underdog knocks off the heavy favorite. It's also known for buzzer beaters, shots that win the game with no time left on the clock. It's super exciting to see a team finish an epic comeback win with a last-minute, unexpected, clock-beating miracle finish.
Floater, short, got it back, ties it with 3. Gonzaga has time to do something. Sox for the win. Oh, yes! Oh, yes! Unbelievable! Unbelievable! The perfect season.
Last chance for the Panthers.
And he said he wouldn't take a timeout in this situation.
Jesperson, half-court heat for the win. Jesperson does it. Northern Iowa with the buzzer. 75-72. Ogunbowale for the win. Good! Enrique Ogunbowale wins the national championship for Notre Dame.
Pressure, Brown, time running down. Arkansas having trouble getting down. USC with the play. It's good! It's good! USC! Do they say it's out? It's over! Arkansas has defeated.
Right to the court with Archie Diacono. 3 seconds at midcourt.
Jenkins
gives it to Jenkins for the championship. The national champions with Jenkins hitting the winner at the buzzer.
Those shots remind you, as long as there is still time on the clock, it's never too late. But see, when the game is over and the final horn has sounded, it's done. You can't make a comeback after the game is over. In sports, when it's done, it's done. But see, with God, the game is never over. Even when things look completely and totally done, it's not too late for him. In Romans 4:17, Paul described God as the God who gives life to the dead and calls things that are not as though they are. It's like the old cliche says it this way, it's not over until God says it's over. But have you ever felt like God was late? That he missed the opportunity to meet your need, that time ran out and God missed it. Maybe you're there right now. You've got a big need and you need an answer today, now. Time is running out. Your only hope is a last-minute buzzer beater from heaven. Something has to happen and it needs to happen quick. We're going to look at a story today that's found in the book of Luke, chapter 7, where hope was gone. It was too late even for Jesus. If you feel like God missed out on helping you or that time is running out on your miracle, then you need to listen close. You'll rediscover hope in this story, starting in verse 11. Soon afterward, Jesus went down to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with them. Now, Nain was a small village in a mountainous region in Galilee. On both sides of the steep road entering the village were rocky foothills that were dotted with caves that were used to bury the dead. Everyone had to pass through the cemetery in order to enter the town. And as Jesus approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out. See, Jesus and the disciples were walking down that steep hill through the cemetery to the town gate. And as they approached, a funeral procession was moving up the hill in their direction. Now, Middle Eastern funerals were and still are quite different than what we're accustomed to. See, they didn't have a hearse. Later in the passage, the word coffin was used, and that's the closest word that the translators have to what it actually was. But it wasn't really a coffin. Instead, the body was carried through the streets to a burial place on what was called a funeral bier, B-I-E-R. Picture a cot with handles. It was a very loud and emotional scene. dead person was being carried out, the son of his mother, and she was a widow. It was a horrible loss. This mom was grieving the loss of her only son, but see, her problems were just beginning. In order to fully understand the gravity of the situation, you have to understand a little bit more about the customs of that day. See, at the death of the husband, it became the responsibility of her son to care and to provide for her. Her son was her only source and means of financial support. And now she had years to live with no plan for support or survival. See, she couldn't just go out and get a job that wasn't done in that day. She was destined to a life of begging, barely getting by at best. When her son died, she might as well have died too. It was a tragic picture of a person with no hope. No doubt she prayed for her son to be healed, but it didn't happen. And now her son was dead. It was too late. There was no coming back for him or for her. A large crowd from the town was with her. See, several years ago, people had respect for funeral processions, right? Cars would pull over to the side of the road, and while that still happens occasionally, not near as much as it used to. See, everyone used to stop to show sympathy and to honor the family, and now you're lucky if they slow down. But see, in those days, the entire town stopped. All attention was focused on this mother and her loss. The mother was in the front of the crowd. Those carrying the coffin were behind her. And behind the coffin were the mourners, the friends, and the family. Then the people of the city joined in the funeral procession, mourning with the mother and showing respect for the dead. See, this mother wasn't alone. The tragic death of her son drew a large crowd. She was surrounded by her neighbors and friends and even strangers who were mourning with her. And although it's comforting to have a big crowd of mourners, it didn't change her situation. There were a lot of people around her, but there was no one who could take the place of her son and provide for her. You can be surrounded by people, even helpful, sympathetic people. But see, often friends and doctors and financial advisors and experts don't have the answer. You can be surrounded by people but still feel hopelessly alone. In those moments, what do? Where do you turn? Verse 13 starts with these 5 words, when the Lord saw her. See, in the midst of all of the emotion, Jesus saw the woman. This was a turning point in the story. If this was a movie, this would be where the change of music happened. And when you read that Jesus saw her, you knew that something big was about to happen. And in the same way, Jesus sees you. At your worst moment, Jesus sees you. Jesus sees beneath the surface to the hurt and the need. When you feel all alone, when you don't know where to turn, when you feel like no one else understands you and your situation is hopeless, even if you feel like it's too late and it's too far gone, Jesus sees you. See, you may feel invisible to others, but you are not invisible to Jesus. He sees you. He knows where you are. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." See, Jesus felt her pain, and he sensed her despair. Jesus was moved by her desperate situation. Listen to me, Jesus knows your emotions. Jesus knows your doubts, and Jesus knows your fears. His heart goes out to you. Jesus sympathizes with your pain. I don't know about you, but that's awfully encouraging for me. But see, the second part of the verse really seems very insensitive. Jesus said, "Don't cry." The woman lost her husband, and now she lost her only son. She had a good reason to cry, but Jesus said, "Don't cry." See, if anyone else had said that, then you would punch them in the face for being insensitive. But see, there was something different when Jesus said it. See, Jesus wasn't trying to avoid the emotion. He wasn't uncomfortable with her mourning. Jesus said, "Don't cry." And when he said that, something else was coming, because he alone had the ability to change the situation that she was crying about. Listen, it is great to have people cry with you. It feels good. But see, it's far greater to know Jesus, who can change the situation you're crying about. And then he went up and he touched the coffin, and those carrying it stood still. See, Jesus did the unthinkable. He touched the coffin. It was the ultimate violation of protocol. This is like if you're the person whose phone rings during the most serious part of the church service and your ringtone is Born to Be Bad. By the way, that's happened. Right? And now everybody's checking their phones to make sure it's on vibrate. This is about as inappropriate as blowing an air horn at the ballet, or wearing bright pink to a funeral, or a white gown to a wedding and you're not the bride. See, this is a worse violation of protocol that is way worse than trying to give your pastor ice cream when he's on a diet, or giving away small cake cupcakes when he's on a diet. It's terribly horrible. See, that's the kind of moment it was when Jesus touched the coffin. See, you didn't do that for any reason ever. If you touched a coffin, then you were considered unclean, and you couldn't return to church until you went through an elaborate 7-day cleansing ritual. And Jesus knew that. See, Jesus knew the rules, but he reached out and he touched the coffin anyways, because he had an agenda. He had a plan. When Jesus touched the coffin, everything and everyone stopped. The funeral procession quit moving. The mourners grew quiet. The pallbearers took a break. And no doubt that these people had heard about Jesus. They knew that he was a great teacher who performed miracles, but Jesus violated tradition and the rules and the customs. The people stopped in shock when he touched the coffin. Maybe your situation has been going on for a long time. Your prayers haven't been answered. You can't remember the last time that you actually expected something good to happen. And over a period of time, you lose belief that your situation can actually change. But see, when Jesus comes onto the scene, everything else stops. And then he went up and he touched the coffin, and those carrying it stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." What? That's crazy talk. Right? It was too late for a conversation with the dead man, but Jesus told him to get up. The people in the funeral procession had to be thinking, what in the world? Right? How can he do that? How can he give this woman false hope? How rude and insensitive. What a horrible thing to do in the middle of a funeral. What a horrible way to treat this woman. And what happened next was absolutely incredible. The dead man sat up and began to talk. I wish I was there. Think about it. As they were walking through the streets, almost to the burial place, Jesus interrupted the procession. Jesus touched the coffin and commanded the son to get up. And there in the middle of the street, surrounded by the big crowd of people, the dead guy sat up and started talking. See, I get frustrated at this point of the story. What did the guys that were carrying him do? Did they just drop him? I want to know, what did the guy say? Did he comment on what he had seen while he was dead? Did he thank Jesus? Did he question and say, wait, what are we doing? Did he say, why are all of these people crying? Or did he simply say, boo? That'd be awesome. That's what I would do. But see, we don't know what he said, but regardless, the boy that was dead was now alive. He came back from the dead. The funeral was over. A large crowd, almost an entire town, witnessed Jesus raise someone from the dead. And that story was never disputed. There were far too many witnesses. It said the dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. What a beautiful picture. Jesus turned to the grieving mother and said, "Here he is. Here's your son." Can you imagine the reunion? The mother's tears of sorrow turned into tears of joy. See, this is way better than any of those reunion videos that you see on YouTube. And again, the Bible leaves out details that I want to know. See, I want to know what that moment was like. I want to know what the mom said to the son. I want to know her reaction. See, because the details are left out, we tend to downplay the emotion. But come on, her son was dead and now he was alive. What would your emotion be? There is no way to accurately describe how this mother must have felt. But I'd be willing to bet that she was dancing. She was shouting, she was singing, and she was hugging Jesus and her son. See, the funeral was interrupted. The funeral bier was thrown to the side. The grave was left empty. In the place of death, there was life. In the place of hopelessness, there was abundant joy. Grief turned into rejoicing. Sorrow turned into shouting. Tears turned into dancing. And the funeral became a party. Then that mom let go of her son and grabbed Jesus and said, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. How can I ever thank you enough? Thank you for giving my son back to me. Thank you for stopping the funeral and turning it into a celebration. Thank you, Jesus." See, to everyone else, it looked like it was too late. It looked like life was over. But she got everything back. See, Jesus gave it all to her. Her son, her future, her hope, and her joy. Maybe your situation looks too far gone. The funeral procession is close to the tomb. You think there is no way that Jesus can help me now. You're financially ruined. With each trip to the mailbox or a look at your bank account, you hear another clod of dirt hit that coffin. You know that you'll never dig your way out. Your addict son or daughter has been in and out of rehab or prison. Your loved ones who once surrounded you in support now seem more like a crowd of mourners. Even your closest friends have given up. You're trying to have a child and you just had another negative pregnancy test or you just miscarried. Your dream is dying. You've been fighting depression for so long that you don't even remember what it's like to feel better. You've given up. You're sending money to your family in your home country, but you're worried that you might never see them again. You've tried everything. There's no answer to your sickness. Even the doctors have given up. You hoped and hoped they would meet that special someone, but you refused to give up even though you made mistakes along the way, and now it looks like you'll never meet that person. Perhaps your marriage is over. You've worked hard to save it, but now it's obvious that your efforts were in vain. Others of you, over the last year, you have lost someone that you love, and the grief is overwhelming. You can't imagine the day when you wake up and you don't feel the overwhelming weight of that sadness. You just failed again. You might feel like a disappointment to everyone who loves you and to God. You're alone, no friends, no help, and no hope. You love God, but it seems like He has let you down once again. Maybe you've even given up on praying. There's no point. It's too far gone. It's over. There's nothing left. It's too late. Listen, I have got good news for you. Jesus is not bound by the laws of nature, time, or space. See, what looks dead, what looks gone, what looks over and done can be changed by Jesus. See, Jesus can restore everything that you've lost. It is never too late for Jesus. Now, here is the end of the story. Even though it's understated, we get a quick glimpse of the crowd's reaction. They were filled with awe and they were praising God. Really, you think? A great prophet had appeared among us. They said, God has come to help His people. See, the people were amazed. Then a worship service broke out. There was singing and dancing and shouting and celebration. The funeral procession became a victory parade back into town. Can you imagine the people who didn't attend the funeral? Wouldn't you have hated to miss that one? They stood at quiet attention as the procession passed towards the cemetery. They heard weeping and wailing. They saw the desperation and the grief. But a short time later, they heard something completely different. They heard shouting and laughing and singing and rejoicing. The same people that left grieving were now returning back towards town, and the dead guy was leading the parade. I promise you, it was an unforgettable day in the city of Nain. This news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding country. You better believe it did. Right? That's not the kind of story that just stays in one place. You don't keep that kind of story to yourself. Word spread quickly. Everyone heard about the funeral that wasn't. The widow, her son, and the mourners told everyone what Jesus had done. This is such an important part. The purpose for God's power in your life, the purpose for Him setting you free, is to focus your attention on God. It is not for you to get the glory. It is for God to get the glory. See, people will see what God has done in your life, and they will believe that God can also help them. Share what Jesus has done for you. When you receive an amazing miracle, you've got to share it. Yes. Now, one more thing, and then I want to pray with you. This is important. What might seem to you like a random encounter wasn't. It wasn't a coincidence that Jesus was on that exact road at that exact time and met that exact funeral procession. See, Jesus was walking down that road for a reason. He saw a hopeless widow and her dead son coming up that road. Listen to me, Jesus is attracted to impossible, hopeless, way too late cases. Why? Because they're an opportunity to demonstrate the power of the living God. See, Jesus did what no one else could do to prove a power that no one else had. Here's the lesson of the story. With Jesus, it is never too late. When it looks over, it's not. When all hope is gone, hope isn't gone. Jesus is still attracted to the impossible, hopeless cases where His power can be displayed and His name can be known. Listen to me, it is not over. It is not too late. There is still hope for you. It's never too late for Jesus.